welcome to the ECPO Patient Lounge on this very important eve. It is the eve of World Obesity Day, and we're all excited for campaigns across Europe and indeed the globe as we hit tomorrow, the 4th of March. Now, my name is Vicki Mooney, and I shall be your host for the next 1 hour on this special edition. I suppose, what is this whole lounge about tonight? We're going to look at COVID and obesity. We're going to talk to our German colleagues. We have a very special sneak peek for you guys because we do have results from a survey that was done across Europe, and some of the results are quite harrowing. We know that COVID and obesity has really struck many of the chronic disease and illness communities quite hard. And obesity, of course, is one of those. So our EASO and our ECPO team will be there to kind of give you a little insight on some of that data. We do, of course, have our guest panel, and I'm delighted to have Maura Murphy from Ireland, Mario Silva, welcoming him back from Portugal, and Audrey Roberts from Scotland. Now, I suppose you really want to get in touch and share and add your comments, reflections, and your questions. So you can go to Twitter or Instagram. You can get on social media. Once you ask your question or reflection, use hashtag ECPO Patient Lounge. We will pick it up, and our comms team will ensure our panel get a chance to, I suppose, delve into it and answer. We're recording this session. We will have this available for you later. And a huge thank you, as always, to our sponsors for making this happen, Novo Nordisk and EASO. Now, first up, we have an interview with our 3 German organizations. I'm incredibly proud, as are our team at ECPO, to work with Stephanie Wirtz, Marion Rumfried, and Andreas Hirth as their leaders, passionate, strong, and courageous with the work they've done, all leaders in their organizations across Europe or in Germany. Now, what they have done is they've gone on this huge feat in the last number of years for obesity disease recognition. They're going to share some of their aspirations, their challenges, and their hopes for tomorrow, and a little insight into their journey. Let's hear what they had to say when I caught up with them earlier on today. Hello and welcome to the Patient Lounge on this very exciting time. It is the eve of World Obesity Day, and I'm delighted to have 3 passionate, courageous, and strong advocates from Germany joining us to share some of their experiences and challenges. Now, we've got Marion, Steffi, and we have Andreas, who are all leaders in organizations across Germany and patient advocates, and also members of ECPO. Now, Marion, I want to jump to yourself straight away, because with World Obesity Day being tomorrow, I want you to think about what are your aspirations and your plans for tomorrow, because it's such an exciting day.
With our campaign, we want to educate people about the disease obesity and give them the opportunity to talk about their life with the disease, with their very own and real stories, to offer them a platform for their own voice, to show how much rejections and lack of understanding they encounter and how less people know about this disease. We want to show how these people live, are discriminated against and excluded in many situations, and are often even mocked, but still manage their everyday lives.
Marion, you know, when you speak, it makes me realize how evident is across the whole of Europe, these challenges and the importance and the need for education everywhere. Thank you so much. Steffi, I want to delve into some questions with yourself, and probably looking at and considering tomorrow is World Obesity Day, and you're all going to be very active as strong patient advocates. What are the challenges that patient organizations face when advocating on days like World Obesity Day?
So I think the biggest challenge is to address the right person. Not we are concerned, but everyone else around us who isn't involved in the topic every day. So the normal house dog or neighbors or every people.
I had to mute myself there. I realized there was actually a plane coming in as well, so I didn't want to drown you out with the noise of a plane. No, I really appreciate that. I think, you know, And I know I've said this to Marion as well, it really is evident that we all have the same challenges, and addressing the right person is important. Now, I know in Germany, that is one thing that you've done remarkably well with advocating for disease recognition. Andreas, you've been behind the scenes, you've been leading, advocating, and quite powerful along with these beautiful ladies on screen with you. So can you give me a little bit of insight and share with the audience, some of that experience and what it was like?
Well, actually, it was quite a journey, and I can't even believe that it's 2 years now. It just feels like if it was a few weeks condensed and very, very dense. However, it's 2 years now. 2 years ago, we started trying to get together, and our first project that we did together as three groups was to start a petition to the German Bundestag, asking them for reimbursement of conventional therapies. And actually, to be honest, it didn't went too well. The thing is, it was our first project, and like it is in team building, we have that forming, storming, norming phases, and we were just in the middle of it. We had to do everything, we had to perform, but we didn't go through the first 3 phases. So that was really hard. And actually, the result was not too good. It was a lack of participation. We had friction within the groups and all that stuff. But however, it was our first project and we did it together. And that gave us reason enough to say we will continue that and continue to work together, because we can achieve more if we do it together instead of just walking alone. And walking alone was what all the groups did 10 years before that event, and nothing really happened. So in saying that, the major next step was that we went with a German open delegation to a conference, and at that conference, we had a mixed group. It was patients, it was Melanie Barger and myself, and together with our group, there was a medical doctor, there was a representative from a health insurer, and there was a politician with us, a member of the German parliament. And I believe the big game changer was that we started to talk with each other. It was not the conference itself. It was after the conference and before, when we sat together at breakfast, in breaks, when there was a connection between Melanie as a patient living with obesity and, on the other hand, a politician, a very thin guy, small and thin guy, no clue of what obesity is about. And he learned that through 5 or 6 days where we closely worked together. And eventually, after those 5 days, Alexander Krauss, the politician, says, okay, I learned a lot, but that cannot be it. There must be something as a follow-up. We need to continue this. And the continuation was the formation of the German Obesity Alliance, which is just still the same setting. We have a mixed group, but it's way bigger. And it grows almost every 2 or 3 weeks, where we get a new member on board. And the difference is that on that table with the mixed stakeholders, we can have all those discussions at the table. We are not talking about others that are not at the table. We are talking with each other. And interestingly enough, those experts, the politicians and the scientists and all of those, they listen to patients. They listen when Melanie speaks. They understand what it is, how to live with obesity, why it is so important to change something. And that's what I believe is the difference, the why. I don't know if you know Simon Sinek. It's the why that counts. It's the reasons.
Yes.
If you do all that stuff only because of the fame and fortune, everything that goes with it, that's the wrong cause. You have to have a just cause, and doing that for the people you love, doing that for the people that deserve help, that's the just cause.
I think what you pointed out there was really tying into what Steffi said so well. We say like the challenges that we have is talking to the right people and getting the right people and working together. You managed to get that right person at the table to speak with Melanie. And like we've seen Melanie at the policy conference a couple of years ago, where the words of the patient are so powerful. And when you can marry that with the policymakers and the science, then you have a really fantastic opportunity to share, collaborate, and build. And I think that's what you've done quite beautifully. Like I think as we look at challenges ahead of tomorrow, World Obesity Day, we know that we put the likes of kind of sessions like this out. We get feedback from the general public. You know, it can be very hard for patients to speak about their challenges. And Andrea says you were the partner of Melanie and you've watched her on this incredible journey alongside Steffi's organization, your own organization, and Marion's. And how do you think she has become so powerful in herself as that patient advocate, that she had such courage, and all of these other patients have such courage to stand up and speak like this to politicians?
I believe the major thing is her personality. It's integrity. She means what she says. She's not pretending to do anything. She's not lobbying like the pro-lobbyists that fight somebody else's fight. She's fighting her own fight. And that's what makes the difference. That creates trust. And that trust gives the scientists and the industry and all others at the table a lot of credibility. So it's really a win-win situation. We provide the trust and the feeling that it's important, that the right thing has to be done. And the others provide their bit. The scientists tell us what needs to be done, and the industry takes care that it can be done and can be bought and all that stuff. So everything eventually fits together.
Yeah.
And back to your question, why is she so strong? It's just that she is what she is.
I think that goes for every one of you on this call, because I was lucky enough to be a part of the roundtable for the Irish organization last week, and Michael Steffi, your husband, was on that call. And when I listened to his words about himself as a patient and how powerfully he advocates, it really and truly opens up such emotion. And I think when you can connect that with the policymakers and you can make them understand and realize, it makes a huge difference. And actually, one thing I'm quite excited about is that actually after we speak, we will be speaking with Ken Clare and Sri Bryant on the European survey. And Germany was actually a part of that. And it hasn't been released yet. We're going to have a sneak peek teaser. But I think pretty much everything that Melanie has advocated for and all of you have advocated for will show up in those survey results. And it gives credibility to all of what every patient says. The science and the data is backing up where we are as patients and what we need. So I just want to land with and ask you all, what is your one piece of advice to the audience that are watching? Because we have so many patient advocates in so many countries that really want to learn from you guys. Marion, can I start with yourself? What's your one piece of advice?
Never stop fighting.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Just keep it going. Steffi, can I jump to yourself?
Don't give up, fight, and think positive.
Yeah. I think thinking positive, because it is difficult when, and I can see myself how amazingly you guys have all been now role models in collaborating together and driving that charge and ensuring that you get the job done. Andreas, what's your one word of advice before we go to our panel?
The thing is, I'm not a man of one words or short answers.
I know that.
I'm sorry.
One paragraph.
Yeah. Actually, I cannot provide a recipe, and that's my main message. There's no recipe in order to replicate what happened in Germany. So my message would be, just try it, just go for it.
Yeah, just go for it, because at the end of the day, it affects the lives of ourselves as patients, and not only ourselves as patients, but people like yourself, Andreas, who is, with a loved one who is struggling with a disease called obesity. So I want to thank you all. I have no doubt our audience will take away so much inspiration and hope from you. Good luck tomorrow on World Obesity Day. We're all in the same corner, pushing and driving together, and I will see you all soon. Take care and stay safe.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
You're incredibly welcome back. It was wonderful to see our team in Germany. I was about to say our panel, but our team in Germany, who have been just remarkable in what they've achieved. Now, I want to welcome our panel to the stage, and I'm delighted that we have Maura Murphy from Ireland. Maura, I know, has been just such a long-standing advocate. She is the Secretariat for ICPO, which is the Irish Coalition for People Living with Obesity, and she is a Dublin woman living in dangerous territory over in the west of Ireland, followed by Miss Audrey Roberts from Scotland. Audrey is, as many people know, our Vice President here in ECPO. She also sits on the ASO committee in Scotland, and she's the wife to Davy. She is the mum of 3 fabulous, beautiful cats, one who even has a Twitter account. And we'll go to Mario. Mario is, of course, a representative from Portugal who sits on our patient council here in ECPO. He's the president of APCOI with a focus on childhood obesity in Portugal. And also he is known to us as Super Mario. You're all very, very welcome along. It's great to have you all here. Look, he even has his mask. I knew it. I knew it.
Always.
We actually have a fantastic picture, and we all have those masks on. Yeah. But guys, one thing I do want to address, because I know I can see the smile, particularly in Audrey's faces. Obviously, that was an interview with our German colleagues, and obviously behind Marion is 2 fantastic pop-up banners for World Obesity Day, and it does say the words "dick," which is in German "thick" or "fat." So just for our English-speaking colleagues, don't be worrying. There was nothing kind of rude or vulgar there. Now, let's open it up for discussion. Maura, I want to come to you first, because what you've heard there from our German colleagues in Ireland, you guys have just suddenly erupted with this fantastic advocacy plan. And what were your thoughts after listening to our German colleagues?
Well, after listening to Andreas, I definitely resonated with the words that he said. He said they've only been going 2 years, but it feels like a few weeks condensed, and that's how we feel. We've just been started as well. We hit the ground running. We've been incredibly busy since incorporating, and we haven't had time for team building that he mentioned. But the plus side is obesity is a hot topic. And the other thing that he said was that walking alone, nothing happens. I thought that was very, very well said.
Yeah, it is very true. And you really have hit the ground running. And I know that's quite challenging, because when I think of Audrey there, Audrey, if I come to you in Scotland, you've been instrumental in kind of the local work that you've done in advocacy and how you've brought that about. Do you want to share your thoughts?
Well, I must agree that I absolutely agree with Marion and Steffi and Andreas and what they said, and I applaud what they did in the past. But looking to the future, they've sort of gone where we were, and I completely agree that looking forward, we need to continue to work together in order to create change, because this process of change is a long-term project, and we've been doing this. At my first ever support group was 2004, so. I know it absolutely won't happen quickly, and I believe we need to continue to take advice from and influence from so many different stakeholders, exactly what was said, and not just other patients and our own peers. We need to show and teach everyone who doesn't understand the disease of obesity and the scientific facts, and not just the misguided opinions that might show up in the printed media or anything like that, in order to dispel the untruths surrounding obesity.
Yeah.
And I think that's been one of our biggest challenges with WLS Info and now Obesity UK, going back it felt like it would never happen, but all of a sudden in the last maybe 2 or 3 years, it seems to be picking up and getting more traction. And I think that's because of across Europe, we're all on the same page, or we're trying to get on the same page.
Yeah, I think you've made some excellent points here, because I think this comes back to how stigmatizing obesity is as well, and how many people have shied away from advocating. And it's incredibly hard to stand up and be empowered, feel empowered, and share your thoughts and say that, I know this disease. Like, at the end of the day, we know that many of our scientists will give us the rundown, which is, you cannot argue with the research and the data and the science behind obesity. But it is quite hard when you're constantly slapped in the face with the usual media plug of, it's just lifestyle, you're just lazy, you're not doing enough. But it has definitely ramped up. And Mario, in Portugal, you guys are just phenomenal. And when I think back to what Audrey said, her first support group was in 2004, but we know in Portugal, obesity disease recognition was in 2004. But yet you're working with such a vulnerable group. These are the children in Portugal. And what is your thoughts on the advocacy work that's being done, and how are you guys getting on?
Thank you, Vicki. That is a very good question, because children are very shy to talk in public about this issue. So they have to be represented. And most of the times in the media, we cannot simply have children to talk openly about it, because they're shy, and of course their parents want to protect their children image to be explored in the media in a negative way. We are trying to work with some families also about this, and we are very selective with the media that we choose to work and to open to make some work in the media about this, because with this group you have to be very assertive in the way that you talk about their life, their uh, of course they know already it is a disease, but you have to be very you have to make it to happen like it is something that it's not something that they have to be feel guilty to have
Yes.
this problem. And that is the most important thing that we try to do in Portugal. Don't feel guilty about this disease. And the blame, no one can blame also the family, because this is not fault of anyone. And that is the biggest question about children in Portugal. uh, we have done a lot of work about advocacy. This conquer that you mentioned before, it was done by Adexo, our great Carlos Oliveira. He founded this association. It was the first association. As in Germany now, we are trying to build some alliance, because there are other associations, so we are working together as much as we can. And it is an interesting situation also in Portugal, because our association APCOI is leading the work with children, with families, with schools. Carlos is everywhere, because you know how he is, but he have done a tremendous job recently also with politics. The disease is already recognized in Portugal. Obesity is already recognized as a disease, but now in the parliament, in the Portuguese parliament, Carlos adds this tremendous job to put government thinking on co-participating treatments, medicines for all spectrum of this disease, because in Portugal, operations, chirurgic operations are also included in our healthcare system, but all kind of medicines are not, and there are very, very few investment in prevention. We do our prevention project in schools. It is free for schools, but we don't receive any money to do this from governments. So there's much work to do, and support groups that other associations do with many people to understand how they can go and get help. We are connected, but we do different works, but we all advocate for the rights of people living with obesity, because that is the most important thing that we also learned with you, with Europe, and with all this connection that we are making. It's wonderful. And what I keep from these talks is that the last words are the best, because, well, try something in your country. If you have no help, try something, keep trying, even if you cannot
Keep
do best,
going.
keep going, do something. That's it.
Keep going. That's exactly it. Yeah, keep going. And I think, when I listened to your words there, Mario, a couple of things came true. And because I know Maura, going back so long, and as a patient advocate, and listened to some of her sharing, and that as children, we were always shamed and always guilted as patients. It was always our fault, and I think it's only through doing this work that we've been educated and taught that, yes, we have a responsibility to our health. We have a responsibility to ensure that we have a healthy diet, that we exercise just like everybody else. But we also have a disease that we cannot control our hormones, we cannot control our genetics, we cannot control any of this. So I think it's just so vital what you said there, Mario, protecting the children that obviously are, we're working with. But when I was listening to you, I was thinking about the difference between Ireland and Portugal. And when I think of Ireland, with a population of just under 5 million, and I think more, it might be 3 weight management clinics, if even, or
Yeah,
2.
there's
And
definitely 2,
Portugal,
some private ones.
yeah, and then we have Portugal with a population double that of 10 million, but over 20 weight management clinics in the country. And I think, Maura, when we look at that, if we think back to when Portugal recognized obesity as a disease in 2004, where you're starting now, Maura, with the incorporation of your patient organization, you can kind of see exactly what is ahead then for yourselves. And how does that make you feel?
It makes me feel that we want to be exactly where Portugal are. We want to be there. I know we have a lot of work ahead of us, and we're doing okay, but we will do better. We look forward to the future. We have exciting news tomorrow with a model of care being launched. I'll talk about that later, but there's a lot of things happening in Ireland with regard to obesity that certainly wasn't there years ago, which is fantastic. Our support group isn't running that long, and thanks to ECPO helping us and supporting us to get started. And we really are grateful for all of your support. And it's a collaboration, as you said, marrying the words of the patient with policymakers is very important, and the science. It lends the opportunity to share and collaborate. Very, very well said. And I think that's it, to find the right stakeholders as well. And that's where we're coming from. And we were doing advocacy training online. So we're learning, but we're very willing and very, very able and very eager.
Yeah. And I think, isn't that the beauty? And that's, as Mario goes, yay! That's the beauty of all of this, is that, like, if we even look to when we started out, going back to 7 years ago, when we were like, what are we doing here? We're all these scientists and researchers. And now look to where ECPO are, and how we get to work with all of you guys and learn from everybody here. But as well as a fantastic knock-on effect, and Audrey, I think you'll have seen this effect, is the empowerment to other patients, and how empowered patients feel and inspired by others. I know when I'm around Mario, I just feel that boost in myself, and yeah. And Audrey, you've been a part of that journey, and you're now our vice president in Europe. And advocating and empowerment, how does that make you feel as a patient and as Audrey Roberts?
When I first started this, as I say, it was 2003, and my first ever, as I said before, my first ever group was 2004, and that was due to Ken Clare, and that was his influence and hitting me with a stick and telling me to get it done. So I became the Scotland rep for WLS Info, which is now Obesity UK, then asked to be in the committee, becoming a trustee, and that was that for quite a while. And the confidence, even just in sharing your story, the first time you do it, you're a bag of nerves, and then it gets easier and easier. And then I was invited to join ECPO as a Scottish rep, and then was applied and was successful for vice president, and then to be ASO Scotland. It's just getting bigger and bigger, and it's fantastic because my peers are seeing what I'm doing, they're listening and they're joining in, and they're becoming, not just in Scotland, but across the UK and across Europe, across the world, people are becoming more educated and more confident in saying what the truths are, rather than being about the stigma of, the pictures that you get in the media of just your tummy and things like that. And they're fighting against that. I don't like using the word fight, but we're rebelling against that. We want it to be better for us, yes, but more for our children and our grandchildren, so that when they grow up and they get older, they're not bogged down by the emotional baggage that we've had to put up with since we were children.
Exactly. And I think you've led us kind of beautifully into our next interview, because what you said there is that patients are now getting a seat at all of these tables. And not only is it a case of the patient is sitting there and sharing their experience as experts, but they're not just ticking a box. Their voice is listened to and heard on national, regional, global scales. And this is where I get quite excited that we have the opportunity now to jump to an interview, which I'm delighted to have Cherie Bryan, Director of Communications for EASO, join us, Professor Jason Halford, President-elect of EASO, and Ken Clare, who is the Director of Obesity UK and also the ECPO Chairman and has been with us many times before. And we're going to have a look at the new Europeans survey, which is European Obesity Patient Pandemic Survey. And as I mentioned, this was actually a new survey. This is a sneak peek. Over 3,000 people we're looking at, 10 countries across Europe. And let's have a jump into it and see what our colleagues had to say. Welcome along to the Patient Lounge. You are all incredibly welcome. I'm so excited. We are on the eve of World Obesity Day 2021. Now, let's get straight to it because we don't have a long time. Cherie, we have the European survey. Do you want to tell us a little bit about this?
Right. This is a collaborative piece of work here. Europeans stands for European Obesity Patient Pandemic Survey. And the idea here is that people living with obesity have faced huge challenges during the pandemic, but we wanted some empirical evidence to see what exactly these challenges have been, what they've really looked like. And we were fortunate enough to have support to develop a survey covering 3,000 people with obesity across 10 countries for the survey. And these countries include Denmark, France, Germany, Greece, Israel, Italy, Portugal, Spain, Sweden, and England. And the results have been really interesting. And I think you want to sort of not give away the whole show, but talk a little bit about some of the key issues that we've discovered from the survey.
Absolutely. We want to keep this as a teaser because this is quite exciting. We're the patient organization. We have collaborated so well with you guys in EASO for so many years. So this is like a little sneak peek into what we're speaking about. Now, I suppose we're lucky when we seen and we shared some of the data, the raw data, and I realized that we're looking at people, like this survey was nearly half and half male and female. It was people in around my age in their 40s across Europe. It was people with a BMI in general of over 35, 36. So we're actually looking at, a really good, fantastic group. Now, Jason, I want to just ask you about two sections of the survey so we don't give too much away to our audience ahead of tomorrow. But when we actually looked at the survey and we talked about emotional well-being, we realized that 55% of those who actually filled in the survey felt worse off. Can you share a little bit on your thoughts on that?
Well, I think to a certain extent that was not unexpected, because we know from working with people living with obesity and patient advocates the terrible challenges that many people living with obesity were facing. Obviously, there's the general financial challenges of going into lockdown and the worries about jobs and financial security, but there's also that lack of or loss of access to treatment, interruption of usual normal coping mechanisms for successful weight management, and a lot of times people had to socially isolate because of issues around health as well and vulnerability. And so you can see, put these things together, you have somewhat of a perfect storm for many people living with obesity, no matter what their circumstances.
Yeah, you're spot on there. And I think when we look back to the first webinar that we did with yourself, Jason, actually a year ago, it's hard to believe it's a year ago. We had done a quick little survey and we got a couple of hundred patients that responded, and we seen pretty much the same thing. So it's great to have this data now from all of these countries to back up what we've been saying all along. And Ken, you're the peer support on the ground in England, and England came out in this survey with kind of some eye openers. And when we look at that 55% of the group on emotional well-being, what's your thoughts around that?
I think Jason made some really good points there, Vicki, and it's really echoed what we've seen on the ground, and not just in England, but across Europe, and even our colleagues across the ocean in USA and Canada. People are struggling without the lack of peer support, and we're looking at how we can possibly supplement and replace that in these times.
Without a doubt, yeah. And I know you've done a lot of work on the ground since we went into this lockdown with peer-to-peer support, which has just been tremendous. And I've actually stepped in and been a part of that in one of your sessions and just blown away by how amazing that is. But when we actually look at the next slide, we talk about online services, access and awareness of that. And the next kind of slide shows us that 88% of people were unaware of the actual online availability of services, and whether that was weight management services. And I think we could actually also talk about peer-to-peer, peer-to-peer support, as you do, Ken. Jason, what was your thoughts on that?
Well, obviously, there is a variety of online services available, and those grew exponentially as basically specialist services shut down one after the other. This could be because healthcare practitioners were taken onto the front line, or in private sectors, it was because they basically closed down because they were not economically viable, because patients couldn't visit. And so a lot of things moved online in terms of specialist provision, but also more general public health provision moved to that online basis. And certainly national public health agencies, such as the ones in the UK, are looking at that and trying to evaluate those services. But what this shows is, despite this growth, both at a sort of national public health level, but at an individual level, is most people were unaware of what was available in the country. So that's a significant barrier. If 9 out of 10 people are not aware of the provision for them. But then, of those people who were aware, half of them didn't engage. And what was the barrier there? And that could be because they didn't feel it was for them, they felt intimidated, or they felt stigmatized by it. There are lots of different reasons. We need to understand these barriers to access, because people have the right, they also have a need to access support. It's very, very important, considering the challenges that we just talked about. But if we're only actually providing support to 5% of the population of these 10 European countries, so 5% of 3,000 is not a lot of people, then we have a significant problem. Because if people are not helped, then issues and problems go unresolved and things can deteriorate.
Yeah, you're absolutely spot on there. And I think it's narrowing that down as to why half of those people didn't access a service they're entitled to and they were aware of. Ken, you work with the patients on the patient community, like firmly on the ground. Do you want to follow up on your thoughts on what Jason said there and those stats?
I think there's two areas that I think we've got to look at. One is about people who haven't got the technology or the skills, and I think we've really got to look and address that. And I think that's an issue not just in health, but in education as well. And then I think the other group of people that we've come across are people who live in perhaps multi-generational, large occupancy households who just can't find a quiet, private space. Not everyone's blessed with that. And I think they're two groups that have struggled during these times.
Yeah, no, you know, you're spot on there. Like, I mean, my parents are staying with us at the moment. I'm working in the bedroom. I'm like Harry Potter in the cupboard. Only for we get to do this patient lounge I do in the living room. I feel like, yay. But it is so hard to have that private conversation when we're all housebound and in that environment. Thank you both for your comments. Cherie, as Director of Communications for EASO, I want to ask you ahead of the policy conference tomorrow. This is heartbreaking data to read, but it is so important that we have this to back up all of our thoughts. And can you give us kind of your thoughts on and kind of summarizing this for us on the lounge?
Right. So, you know, the focus of the policy conference for 2021 is on health system resilience. And part of that is big data. So we've had lots of surveys that are country specific around the impact that the COVID-19 pandemic has had on patient communities. But this is the first Europe-wide survey. We cover 10 countries here. So we really get a window into what's happening with people in their real lives on the ground. And we know that providing access to support services, particularly weight management and emotional well-being services to patient communities, is a crucial part of preventing additional disease and improving wellness for the larger patient community. So these are, you know, just in these few slides, this is a big picture, and this is gives us a big idea of places we can begin to work towards improving health system resilience and improving the lives of people living with obesity across Europe.
Without a doubt, I think it's a fantastic note to end on and not give too much away ahead of tomorrow, which we're all excited for tomorrow morning. Thank you all so very much. We're going to go back to our live panel, and I wish you all well ahead of tomorrow. It's going to be a busy day. Take care and stay safe.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Welcome back, and a huge thank you to Jason Halford, Cherie Bryant, and indeed Ken Clare for their thoughts and reflections on the European survey. Now, I want to welcome back our fan Dabby Dozy panel. Welcome back, you guys. It's good to have you back with us. A couple of things I did take from that is I have to stop saying spot on and stop saying no doubt. And I think that happens to all of us when we watch ourselves back from an interview. We go, do I really say that all the time? But never mind that. Mario, I want to come to you first because I think some of this data that's coming out from the European survey is quite hard to take in. Like when we look at 55% of people who took this survey, we're looking at about 1,600 people from 3,000 felt worse off who were living with obesity in COVID times, and their emotional well-being is affected. And as you had touched on the importance of protecting children, I wonder, can you give us an idea of how children in Portugal are actually coping, and if you've seen signs of their well-being disimproving, perhaps?
Yes, we are right now in Portugal in a lockdown. So schools are closed. We will probably open schools after Easter. and only primary schools and kindergartens. Um, Children are not being children right now, right? And they miss a lot of their friends, of other children. They need this. And of course, families also need time without being with all together. And for children are being really difficult, and they are getting to a point that it's no support for anyone to keep on this. But we went from the best one of the best rates of for the good side of it, of COVID, and then we went to the worst scenario, one of the worst scenarios in Europe. So we have to deal with it. But I think there was in September our schools opened, and the feeling was relief, and for at the other side. Many teachers and many parents sent us their concerns because they couldn't manage their children's weight. So childhood obesity probably has raised. We don't have data from Portugal right now, but it's very easy to understand that this is happening. I see many families, many teachers trying to new strategies. And you were talking about the digital strategies. I know that many physical activity children teachers are suggesting that the whole family do some exercise and take a video of it, record it, and send it to the teacher. They are trying, but it's really difficult in this situation. But we have to be creative, and we have to keep positive, and we have to keep hope that we are going to manage all of this, and manage our anxiety and everything. It's really difficult for children and for families with children. But everyone is doing their best, and it's no one's fault. And and one of the most interesting things that I have heard in these talks and about the data of this survey is that many people who weren't aware of digital support for this disease is now getting this support, and probably some of them will not take this kind of support if we are not in this situation, because other kinds of healthcare are not so accessible to many people. So in terms of nutrition, in terms of psychology, many therapies, it's a good side of it, and we have to look at the good side always. Don't
without a doubt, yes. And there, I just said without a doubt again, and I should slap myself for saying it again. Thank you, Mario. Do you know, it's so true. And I seen a question had popped up there about, you know, how we kind of children can guilt themselves a little bit more. They can be harder on themselves. It's quite difficult to kind of lessen those feelings of guilt in a young person within a family, and it's challenging for them. But I think when we actually looked and we seen that slide that said that 55% of people surveyed who were in their 40s across 10 countries in Europe felt emotionally worse off. I think it's quite hard to do that when you're a family member, or even for yourself as a person, because we've all been hit so unbelievably hard in this global pandemic in different ways. People have lost loved ones. People have, their illnesses have, you know, progressively gotten worse. Their mental health has gotten worse. Their access to their care and their treatment has disimproved. Financially, they're worse off, and they're locked down between four walls. And that's really, really hard. And Maura, do you mind if I come to you and just ask your thoughts on that? Because you're living in the west of Ireland as well, which is quite a remote place as well, and in lockdown. And does any of that data kind of resonate with you?
Well, sorry, living in Ireland, you're living in a village. The whole place is a village. So have the same isolation, we call it, with regard to, say, to population. Like 88% of people on that survey were unaware of online services. Well, tell somebody in Ireland you have an online service, they'll tell their friend, they'll tell their neighbour. So, like, we're very lucky at ICPO because we started running online support groups, and we have had 50 meetings so far, packed out people, and it's growing, every day, which is fantastic. And people they come on and they talk in confidence. Of course, the meeting is in confidence. What goes on there stays there. So they feel quite at ease to share their emotions, and it's like having, without the tea or without the biscuits, it's like having all your friends in the one room together, and we're all chatting, and it's a terrific service. Like, we have those support meetings, and we collaborate to assist with healthcare professionals. We raise public awareness of the disease, and we have some input into documents to change words to people's first language. So Ireland being smaller in population and in size, I think that we kind of are a little bit better off that way. So please contact us in Ireland. If you want to join us, you're more than welcome to come to us for the chat.
For the chat, without the tea, but as well as that, actually, speaking of Ireland, for World Obesity Day, you guys have a pretty mega event lined up for tomorrow. What time do you kick off at tomorrow? And give us just a few seconds on it.
A few seconds, now. We have 3 events coming up tomorrow. First of all, we have our own event at 7 p.m., which is divided into 3 sections. The first section is about patient concerns, and those concerns are being answered by professionals, our videos are amazing. I've just seen them a while ago, guys. I'm blown away by them. Part 2 then is a round table, which we'll see yourself, Vicki, on. And we're looking forward to that as well, where, again, these problems will be spoken about and trashed out. And part 3 then shows that we are people first. We have lives. Wait until you see what people living with obesity can get up to on those slides. Now, I'm not saying anything, I'm not spoiling it. I want you to tune in, right? So now, tomorrow as well, we have the National Obesity Management Clinic Programme with the clinical lead, Professor Donald O'Shea, launching the model of care for the management of overweight and obesity, which we are glad we had a little input there with the language, because part of the language had normal BMI. We don't like the word normal, because that means maybe you're probably abnormal. So we got that changed to recommended BMI. You have to be looking for these things, you have to find them. So that's great. And we have now, this is fantastic, Mario, we have childhoodobesity.ie by Sláinte Care, our Child and Adolescent Obesity Project. They're launching an online course for health professionals. It's free of charge, and they can start anytime, and they can do their 10 or 11 modules learning about childhood obesity, which to me is at the heart of my feelings, because from 12 years of age, I have been living with obesity, thinking it is my fault, and, the stigmatization that goes with that. So, thankfully we have our ICPO, which, highlights the language used in ordinary, we try and watch for stigma. We try and pick it up wherever we can. But we're not going out with banners and bashing people. We're just trying to politely and nicely smile at them and say, would you mind changing that? Thanks very much.
And do you know what? That's what it is. That's exactly how you do it, Maura. And you guys are doing just a phenomenal job in Ireland. And you should pat yourselves on the back. You've blown so many people away with how far you've come in such a quick, short space of time. I'm so delighted that there's so much going on. And the one thing I love about what you're doing is when you said showing people who live with obesity that the things that we can get up to, we're not all couch potatoes. We cycle, we swim, we are, Susie jumps out of aeroplanes, for heaven's sake.
Airplanes.
And that's what it is.
And tomorrow
Yeah,
night's event,
it's
the one thing I would like, one of the biggest things I would like to get out of our event tomorrow night is that we could reach people who are isolated in Ireland, people who have a lot of weight and have decided they're not coming out of the house. They order their messages online, they don't come out. I want them to know that there is an organisation there that they can get in contact with. There's support, there's no judgment, and we are, together we are stronger. And stakeholders will
yeah,
listen to the patient voice. That's very important. So yes, we're
yes, they will.
on the ground running.
Yeah,
So thank you.
actually, speaking of that, when you say about isolation and Ireland being, all these small villages, and which it is, and a good sense of community, Audrey, one thing that I have spoken lately to Ken, who is the chairman, who was on our interview there. Ken and I spoke about loneliness and how hard hitting that has been in England and the UK. And I think when we look at the lockdowns, how people have been kept apart, what's your thoughts as the Scottish representative, being in lockdown in Scotland, when you've seen that data and tying in some of that loneliness?
I completely agree. It's interesting what Cherie and Jason were saying about emotional well-being, and I really wasn't surprised, if I'm honest with you. I think that me personally, I've dropped the ball a little bit when it comes to the peer-to-peer support, because like we were talking about there, inspiring Maura and Mario, where we're talking about people who have got children running around and dogs and cats, but you're also working from home. You don't get out. You're expected, because you put more pressure on yourself to do more work, to be a better wife, to be a better mother, to be a better sister. You need to juggle the house and the home and your life as well as your job. And sometimes you forget, you're so wrapped up in yourself that you forget that there are other people out there who are struggling just as much as you are. And it wasn't until just a couple of weeks ago, one of the girls, Nicola, had said, when are we having another support group meeting? I'm really struggling. And myself and Andrew thought, oh my God, because we hadn't done it, we had dropped the ball. And Andrew, within minutes, had went in and arranged a meeting, and it was really well attended. It was very informal. It wasn't formal at all, because we needed to get that relationship, just a chat, or showing babies and cats and dogs, and just being as normal as you could be in your living room on a Saturday morning. And it was absolutely great. And just listening to Maura and Mario, it's incredibly inspiring, and it gives you a good boost, and it makes you want to do more, and it makes you feel that you can do more, especially in this. And hopefully the restrictions will raise a little bit, and we'll be able to meet face to face soon, and it'll be help as well. I know. Hope so, hopefully.
But Audrey, as you said there, when you said about Nicola messaging, and we've seen this throughout all of our support groups. And I've seen it right across Europe, where many of our patient advocates are saying that people need support in different ways, but just having that, people are missing that human connection. And that's really dragging us down. And on top of that, having chronic illness is just so unbelievably challenging. So connect, empower others, inspire them, be kind to them, try and make somebody smile, for heaven's sake. And, be that strong person for yourself. Don't overdo it. I think that's the one thing we can all take from this last year. I think there's days where I've worked 15 hours, try to be the best mom, as you said, try to be the best friend, try to be the best fiance, and then left myself to the end and I'm running on empty. Don't do that. Connect with people, do what you can. And I'm floored by all of you, by the work you do, by your commitment to this work. I'm going to get teary-eyed. Audrey, do not laugh. I'll get emotional if I say any more. But I just want to thank you all and wish you all a phenomenal day tomorrow on World Obesity Day. We have so much going on. The policy conference kicks off at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. It's going to be some fantastic content and sharing. So I'm sure I'll see you all online. And thank you very much for being a part of our panel. I loved having you, but go and have your tea and your biscuits or your late dinner, or go play with your cat. And I have to say adios to you all. So you can continue to have the conversation, guys. I'm sure there's loads to catch up on. I'm sure there's plenty of screenshots of us going, yay, that we can all share later. But if you do want to watch this back, we will, of course, have this ready on our ECPO website shortly, as a huge thanks to our sponsors, IASO and Over Nordisk. They make this happen for us. Stay safe, stay distanced, and we will see you all in the next episode. Adios, you guys. Good night.